Hey guys, it's less than a week to go to the opening round of the 2020 Formula One season. And on the Pits to Podium channel, Soumil and I are here to discuss 6 things that should be looked forward to in the 2020 Formula One season. So, the first thing we have is the championship battle. The second is the breakout star in 2020. The third is the best midfield driver to look out for. The fourth, is the battle for the best of the rest, as we know, the fourth place in the World Constructors' Championship. The fifth point is going to be about still pending driver movements. And the sixth being my favorite one, which is the one battle that Soumil and I are going to look forward to in 2020. Hi, Soumil.
Hey Kunal, how are you doing? Well, firstly, to all the viewers, welcome to Pits to Podium. Guys, this is going to be a very, very exciting season. A shorter one than before. And this means a lot of things will be far different than what we're used to seeing. And I think that just makes these predictions far more interesting than the regular season. Don't you think, Kunal?
Absolutely. A shorter season, a cramped season is going to challenge teams and drivers alike. And I'm waiting to see who actually is able to, adapt to the new format that we have. And when I say new format, I mean the cramped format, and who actually is able to come out on tops. Because, on one hand, we have Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton gunning for absolute history. They want to equal Michael Schumacher's record, right? But it's such an unusual season. You might not see the most expected results play out starting Austria next weekend.
Yeah, that could be a major factor. Now, again, for me, my personal favorite pick for this one is going to be Lewis Hamilton, considering the record that he's had in the last few years and how much of a dominator he's been of the sport. But if you then take a look at the entire calendar, maybe, just maybe, Max Verstappen in a shorter season could come out on top. And that is one thing to watch out for. Now, some people are going for Charles Leclerc. Some people are going for, say, Sebastian Vettel to just win one last championship before he leaves Ferrari. But my pick still is well and truly Lewis Hamilton. Who's your take, Kunal?
It's difficult to choose someone other than Lewis Hamilton. Okay, that is the God honest truth about 2020 Formula One season. But for some reason, I'm always at the start or before the start of the season, I'm always very kicked about Valtteri Bottas's chances, because every season he's tried something different in terms of preparation. He's tried to be more positive about how he's approaching the whole championship battle and so on. But my outside bet for the World Championship is Valtteri Bottas, because firstly, let's remember he's got the championship winning Mercedes car that he's going to be racing in 2020. It could also be for all we know his last race or last season in Mercedes, right? In which case, could this be Valtteri Bottas's last chance to even fight for a world championship? So I for some reason, just believe we might see a different Valtteri Bottas. The break might have done him well. He's been, rallying and karting and, just making sure that he's in prime shape when racing gets back. So I would pick Valtteri Bottas. I know it's a very unpopular choice. Yes, your expressions say it.
No.
But who knows?
No, to answer that question, I don't think so. I mean, with all due respect to Valtteri, whenever he starts off the season, he starts off with a big bang, winning the first couple of races and showing everyone that, yay, I'm the new Valtteri Bottas. I'm back and I'm here to make a difference. But we have seen so many times he just fizzles out towards the end and there's nothing quite happening after the mid-season. And that is where the beauty of Lewis Hamilton kicks in, because Hamilton, in a longer season calendar, his level of consistency is pretty much unmatched in comparison to any other driver. He may not be the most flashiest driver in terms of race wins, sure. But when the going gets tough, when all the other drivers start to suffer from fatigue, that is when Lewis Hamilton comes into his own element. And that is when he stretches out everyone and wins the most races possible. So on one side, I'm thinking that Lewis is the favorite. But again, the shorter season, because we don't have 21 races, the likes of Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc, those guys who capitalize and just, make the most of the shorter calendar. Like we saw in the second half of the last season, Charles Leclerc was absolutely dominant in that. But Lewis Hamilton, of course, having all the consistency in the world, was able to pick up where he left off and won the championship. So I do have a feeling.
The other person I would bet on would be Sebastian Vettel, because, Bottas and Vettel are two drivers in front-running cars who may not have a longer future in front-running cars, by the end of 2020. So I don't know what it's going to be like, but it would be fun to see what these two drivers are able to pull out, Soumil.
Absolutely. But Kunal, if you just had to have one pick, one word answer for who's going to be the champion in 2020, who would it be?
My mind says Lewis Hamilton, obviously, but my heart says maybe Valtteri Bottas. I would love to see a Finnish driver win. It would be absolutely epic.
I think somewhat similar. We always have a soft spot for Valtteri Bottas, but yeah, I think in the end it's going to be Lewis Hamilton for me. And this just brings it down to the other topic that we have. Now we have the more established names in Formula One, like your Hamiltons and your Vettels and your Bottases and Verstappens. But what happens is quite often we have a big pool of young drivers coming in every single year. Now in 2020 we only have one young driver in the form of Nicholas Latifi, a debut star. But we have quite a few young talents who are only in their first or second F1 seasons who have a lot to prove. And this is the category of all the breakout stars that we have in Formula One this year. So, Kunal, if you just had to pick one breakout star for this season who can just be the shining light in terms of all the other drivers, who would it be? Who would be your pick for that?
I unfortunately I can't give you just one. Okay, I'll probably list a few. I think Alexander Albon is going to show why he deserves the second seat in Red Bull Racing. That's my gut feeling. He's again, the break would have done him really well to adjusting psychologically in the life stage that he's in. He's constantly being tested by Red Bull Racing. And that sort of probably wears you down at a point. So this break would have done him well, I would feel. The other driver I would love to see back in action is Esteban Ocon. I enjoyed his racing against Sergio Perez in Racing Point. And let's remember, for the 2021 Mercedes seat, there might still be, a battle between, say, Ocon or even George Russell, who would be my third pick as in terms of a breakout star. So instead of one, I'm giving you three, but it's tough. It's so tough to narrow it down because there are so many drivers. And I might just add I might just add a number four because I believe in even numbers. Maybe even look out for Lando Norris. He's out to
Exactly.
prove, that if he's able to beat a future Ferrari driver in Carlos Sainz Jr., he's making a statement for himself in his only second season in Formula One.
Absolutely. Well, that's what they say, right? The first season is a bit of a fairy tale, but when you actually come down to the second one, that is when all your perseverance and hard work actually starts to pay off. So Norris definitely one to watch out for. But if I had to pick one, I think I would go for George Russell. Williams this year have come with a far more upgraded car. I mean, of course, it's still not right there to beat the likes of Alfa Tauri and Alfa Romeo, but some say that they may be able to get points on few more occasions, let's say in comparison to last year. And if George Russell, of course, Nicholas Latifi may not be the most representative of teammates, but if he can produce something stellar, I mean, in an underpowered car, we've seen the likes of Fernando Alonso do it early in their career, Mark Webber as well, going to a very, very poor team with poor resources and just breaking them up to the top, scoring points in very unlikely situations. And that is the kind of things that can get you top drives. So for George Russell, if he can do something spectacular with Williams this year, I think he's going to get the Mercedes drives full stop. So I think Russell would be my pick. And then, of course, we have the likes of Albon and Norris to watch out for.
That's great. And let's move on to the third category, right? So the third category is the best midfield driver, right? And this is going to be extremely hotly contested because,
yes,
if we were to look at the scenario, the futures of probably some of the best midfield drivers have already been sorted. So by sorted, what do I mean? Daniel Ricciardo, we know is going to go to McLaren, right? Carlos Sainz Jr., we know is going to go to Ferrari, right? We know that Sergio Perez is going to stay with Racing Point and so on, right? So, of course, Aston Martin next year. But largely, I have a feeling it's going to be between these three drivers because, Daniel Ricciardo will still want to prove by beating, Carlos Sainz Jr. that, hey, Ferrari were wrong in not picking me. Okay. And Carlos Sainz would want to go and make the statement by, getting 7th place or even 6th place, like 2019 by proving that, yes, Ferrari were right in picking me. I am the best of the rest driver. And, likewise, so Sergio Perez, he would love to show, what Racing Point is capable of, despite all the controversy around the pink Mercedes and so on. And one outside chance, again, is Kimi Raikkonen. If this is his last season in Formula One, he would want to prove that being the most experienced midfield driver, or actually most experienced driver on the grid, he is still the best of the rest. So it will be a fight between these four. And an outside chance to all of this, I would give to Lando Norris.
Yeah. No, Lando Norris is so fast. He's such an exciting driver. But as you rightly mentioned, I think those four drivers are the ones to watch out for. Realistically, Kimi can extract a whole lot of pace from that Alfa Romeo. So maybe you can see him up there, even though the Alfa Romeo may not naturally be the fastest of all the midfield cars. But I think if you consider everything, Sergio Perez would be my pick. The Mexican is hot on his heels lately. I mean, he's been just ignored for a Ferrari drive. I mean, he could have been there very well. I mean, he's quite a fast driver. He's been flirting around with the chance of a top team, but it's never quite materialized. And his only opportunity to get to the top right now, it seems, is to take Racing Point / Alpha Aston Martin, I'm so sorry, to the top. And this is the perfect chance to do so. Now, the car seems to be far better than all the midfield teams. So maybe they just have the extra edge. And Perez, I mean, we all know, he's one driver who loves getting his elbows out. And he has a fierce foe in Esteban Ocon back on the track as well.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to see that fight, because even, the midfield teams seem fairly closely bunched up, right? With the regulations being stable and lots of development being frozen, you expect teams to pretty much be performing, far more closer as a bunch than they have in the past. So it will be interesting to see. But that takes me to the next point, which is the best midfield team, right? Soumil, it's going to be a pretty narrow battle out there as well. I'm sure we can just list out the three teams and then you can go pick your one, because I realized over the course of this video, you are far able to back your choices than I am. Okay. So it's obviously going to be McLaren versus, Racing Point versus Renault. I think it's largely going to be between these three teams and their six drivers. What's your pick?
I'll go for something that pleases you far more, because you've worked at this team previously. It's going to be Racing Point for me, because the development has been so limited in the 2020 season. If you have a car that's pretty good from the outset, I think it can help you down, at least in this particular season. Had it been, say, something like 2022, when you have a whole new regulation and upgrades are allowed much more with no budget restrictions, maybe you could see the likes of Renault come up, because McLaren, they're just under a major financial cloud at this stage. They can't put in as much money into their upgrades as, say, someone like Racing Point or Renault can. So I would still back Racing Point regardless of that. But maybe, just maybe, I think Renault can get something done. But with the whole bailout package coming in and with the whole new design to the front wing, I think it's just a sign of intent that Renault want to continue. And if they are giving a sign of intent like that, just maybe there's an opportunity. And they've got two fantastic drivers as well. Daniel Ricciardo, I still have a feeling that he shouldn't be in the midfield. He's a driver that belongs in that top six. And being stuck in the midfield, he can just extract a lot from a really struggling car. Say, someone like Fernando Alonso did back in the day. So I still see this main battle coming out between Racing Point and Renault in the end.
Okay, I'm gonna take your take inspiration from your choices, and I'll go and make mine. So I think Racing Point will be fourth, right? But it'll be a very tough battle between McLaren and Racing Point, because let's remember, in the Constructors' Championship, you need both drivers to be perforing at the same level, scoring the same number of points or as many points together, right? And exactly, I didn't need to mention it, but the big question mark has always been Lance Stroll. Of course, over the years we've seen that he's a better Sunday driver, and qualifying has been his Achilles heels and so on, right? But in 2020, if Racing Point have the right car, Lance will not have as many excuses to fall back on. And at the same time, McLaren with Norris, Sainz, Renault with Ricciardo and Ocon, some really solid driver lineups. And when you pitch the teams against their driver lineups, Racing Point will not come out as the top team, right? It will be a Renault versus McLaren and then a Racing Point. So it will be interesting to see what actually becomes of Racing Point with a great package, and how much is Lance Stroll able to help them be the best of the rest team in Formula One in 2020.
I'm actually a bit optimistic about this. I mean, last year, Lance Stroll, of course, qualifying, as you rightly mentioned, was his Achilles heel. But there were a couple of good performances that he gave in. Let's say, I remember distinctly in Canada, I think he racked in a very, very long strategy on the hard compound tires that probably not other drivers would have been able to execute. Came in there, scored a good heap of points. Again, Germany, a good strategy helped him out. But you have to go in there and actually execute the strategy properly as a driver. And those sort of things are things that Lance Stroll excels at. And Racing Point, as we all know, they have a very good strategic department. they're very clinical in their approach. And that's why when something wrong happens to the top teams, it's always these guys who go out there and capitalize on that. So I'm still pretty optimistic about what Lance Stroll is able to do this year.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
yeah, I
And
think qualifying. Yeah,
and for Lance, the most important thing is going to be to make sure that his performances are not spikes.
exactly.
Because he needs a more
Exactly.
consistent graph, which allows him to be in the points more consistently and so on. And I've been in several media sessions with him. I've had chances to interview him. He's a great kid. We all think that he's entitled because of the fact that he's a Stroll and so on, but he has worked hard to get where he is. He doesn't take his position for granted. And he, more than anyone else, knows that 2020 is going to be an important season, with the car they've had, with, Checo capable of doing what he does, and, with the possibility of being the best of the rest.
Yeah. If anything, I think Lance Stroll and Antonio Giovinazzi will be my dark horses for 2020. These are the drivers that people weigh down constantly, but I think they're going to come out on top. And Giovinazzi as well, just a quick word on him. He's someone who tends to perform very well under pressure. Now, last year, I think in a couple of races when Frederick Vasseur told him, this is the ultimatum. If you don't perform here, you're essentially gone from the team. That is when he stepped up his act, and that's when he got a good couple of point scores. This year, I think it's going to be more of the same. Alfa Romeo have Mick Schumacher almost getting ready. A good F2 season will just pretty much solidify that. And Giovinazzi knows for a fact that if I don't perform this year, there is someone waiting right there to get my seat. That pressure wasn't there in 2019 because Mick wasn't ready and all the other drivers, exactly, they weren't into contention. But now that you have Mick ready to get into battle for Alfa Romeo, I think now Giovinazzi is under far more pressure and this is the time where he'll perform. So maybe watching out for him should be fun as well.
Yeah, and this actually brings me to the fifth segment or fifth part of the show, which is talking about the impending driver movements, right? It's almost going to happen because July, August is usually the time when we hear a lot of driver changes that happen. But, teams like Renault, teams like Haas will probably wait longer before they make a decision. I think the battle between Giovinazzi, between Grosjean, Magnussen, a battle that we otherwise wouldn't end up following as much, will only take more precedence because a works team seat is still available as we record this episode, which is with Renault. And, the likes of Hülkenberg also trying to make a comeback and so on. So it will be interesting to see how the whole battle pans out for somebody wanting to take the second seat at Renault, because at the end of the day, like you said about 2022, you might just be able to spring a surprise if you're Renault, right? And
exactly.
What other driver movements are you looking forward to, or do you foresee happening soon in 2020?
Frankly, from the looks of things, I think Haas are going to make a change. I think they've had enough of this one. They've had to extend it for 2020 for sure. But I think if Grosjean doesn't step up his act, as we all know, he's always on the fringes. He's always on the bubble. And Haas, of course, is the team that is taken from the very bottom to where they are right now, because he was, I think, their first driver contracted to them. But maybe I think I see them running out of patience with him. So I have a feeling that, let's say, someone like Robert Schwartzman from Formula 2 could be put into that Haas seat. If he has a good year, Schwartzman is linked to Ferrari. And Haas also as well, they somewhat operate as a Ferrari satellite team of sorts. So maybe that second seat at Haas could be going to someone like Schwartzman. And just fingers crossed, I hope Jehan Daruvala comes to Toro Rosso, Alpha Tauri right now. So hopefully that's one thing that will happen at the end of this year.
Yeah, it is true, right? Because at Red Bull, again, with the 4 seats they have, only 1 seat is fully confirmed for 2021. You may never know what, Dr. Helmut Marko wants to do with the other 3 seats. And for all we know, he might just use all of 2020 as an experimentation. He might just say, okay, keep shuffling the drivers between Toro Rosso and the Formula 2 seats. You never know if that's something on his mind. But I'm going to touch upon one more thing about Haas that you said, them being a satellite Ferrari team and the likes. Now, up until now, Haas has resisted all financial as well as other pressures to keep a second seat available for a Ferrari junior driver, right? Now, with the economic effects of the pandemic that we're still undergoing, right? We never know if Haas finally succumbs to an offer from Ferrari to say, okay, we'll give you a certain percentages discount on our power units and other tech that you buy from us, but give us a second seat. And then that second seat opens up, like you said, for either Robert Schwartzman, or it could go to Mick Schumacher, or, for example, they will try and see how they can fill up their junior drivers in Formula One, because right now Ferrari have a lot of junior drivers waiting in the ranks.
Yeah.
And all of this might just get compounded if Kimi Raikkonen decides to renew and stay longer in Formula One, because then suddenly one seat at Alfa Romeo is just vacate, is not available because Kimi Raikkonen has decided to stay on longer. Of course, this is only after he proves that he is still able to race with all these youngsters. So interesting times ahead. Also, we've got the likes of Williams trying to see what 2021 would be like. And I think probably they will split it between a paid driver and a performance driver to make sure that their coffers are filled with enough money to go racing.
Yeah, but if there's any team that are more likely to go for a Formula 2 driver, it has to be Williams. Renault, I don't think they would go for, say, someone like Guan Yu Zhu or Christian Lundgaard. They want someone to develop the car. Esteban Ocon, yes, he has a good amount of experience, but will he help you develop the car in the same way as a Nico Hülkenberg or just wild chances of Fernando Alonso? So I don't see that seat going to a Formula 2 driver. Alpha Tauri, maybe, maybe not. Depends on how Danny Kvyat performs. I think they're still going to keep Pierre Gasly for another year. So I think he's going to be in the Red Bull fold. Maybe for Alpha Tauri or Red Bull, that's something to be looked at later on. But one seat, I think it's going to go to one of the younger drivers. Could it be Jehan Daruvala? I don't know. Maybe Yuki Tsunoda? Who knows? There are quite a few options that they have. So that's the other thing gone. And the Alfa Romeo thing that you rightly mentioned, Kunal. Kimi Raikkonen, we know for a fact that he can't fight with the other guys. But as Frederick Vasseur, who's known to develop younger talents, do you want to keep Kimi in for longer? On one side, yes. I mean, he develops the car unlike any other driver. He's a superb test driver. And now that you have limited testing miles, every single piece of feedback that you give back from every single lap in the car is going to be vital, more than ever. So Kimi's inputs can be so crucial for Alfa Romeo. So they may not want to let him go. And this means that the likes of Mick Schumacher may have to wait back even further. Schwartzman and Armstrong may have to wait back even further. So, yeah, things, they have a potential to change, but maybe not as much as, let's say, a blank reset year, like, say, 2019 or something like that.
Yeah. I'm going to throw in a boomerang in some of this, okay? The second seat at Renault, what if one of the Alpha Tauri drivers end up taking it? We saw Carlos Sainz Jr. taking it up, a couple of years ago. But someone like a Danny Kvyat, who's had the experience of racing for Toro Rosso, Red Bull Racing. He was doing simulator and testing work for Ferrari as well. He's doing what he's doing for Alpha Tauri. Maybe Renault might find him, interesting enough as a talent to keep there. Because let's remember, Danny Kvyat in his time was quicker than Daniel Ricciardo. So they will have those things for references as well when making a choice. But I think that's enough for driver speculation. Let's just move on to the last point of the show, which is the one battle that you're looking out for in 2020, Soumil.
It's a tough call. Now, for the first time, I'll take your approach of listing down multiple things that I want to watch. From the midfield perspective, I think there would be nothing more entertaining to watch the battle between Racing Point, McLaren, and Renault. I think that is just going to be superb to watch. All the teams getting their elbows out with barely any development race going on. It's just on your core package and how much your drivers can extract. And as you rightly mentioned previously, Renault and McLaren, they have drivers who seem to be far better on paper. So that's going to be so much fun to watch out for. But the best battle that I'm looking forward to on a broader perspective is going to be Leclerc and Verstappen. If the sources are correct and if Ferrari have a much better car than last year, this one is just going to be properly elbows out. This Leclerc and Verstappen, as we saw so many times last year in Austria, in Silverstone, when these two get going, trust me, the TV ratings are just going to shoot up. They're going to skyrocket over there.
I agree. I mean, so I'll make two selections. Okay, first is going to be to see Hamilton versus whoever else to his 7th World Championship title. Okay, yeah. Again, like I said, my mind says it will be Hamilton, but my heart says he might just be a bit more beatable in 2020. And when I say beatable, I just mean that somebody else might just have the edge over the changing, scenarios over the season. Okay. But the second battle that I'm really looking forward to is Sebastian Vettel versus Ferrari.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It all, we've all been trying to speculate, how is Vettel going to react? Is he going to, not obey team orders? Will he now just drive, flat out trying to prove a point, saying he was the wrong man to drop and so on? So I would love to see Sebastian Vettel versus all of Ferrari.
Oh yeah, Multi 165. That's going to be the code. And just like 2013, I'm pretty sure he's going to know that as well. But that should be fun to watch. And in the end, I think one battle that we have been robbed of sorts is the battle on the political side between Ferrari versus the rest of the world, the whole political thing. But thankfully, that's good for the sport, that now that everyone is going to be on the same page and try and cut costs because of the whole pandemic. It's a good thing from the whole sports point of view, but just from the political entertainment point of view, just kind of miss that battle between all the teams and trying to see what happens.
But I'll tell you one more political battle that is going to play out in 2020. That is a Bernie Ecclestone versus Formula One. Okay, so we've all heard the most recent statements for and against racism, and how Formula One has come out to say that Bernie's position was at best honorary, which ceased from January 2020 and so on, right? And now Bernie has, of course, challenged Formula One to say, okay, what are you going to do? Stop me from attending races? And, he's said that he's not going to be attending the opening couple of rounds in Austria because of, he's waiting for the arrival of his son. Okay. But he said that
another one?
Sorry?
There's another one?
The only one. I mean, he said, I've never had a son in life before. But, I think he's having a son with his wife. Okay.
But on the lighter side, how many children has he had? Is it 6 or 7 right now? I'm a bit confused.
Honestly, I've never kept track of his personal life. Okay, but I know the reason why I know he's having a son is because he made a very interesting comparison. He said, I've been to lots of Formula One races in my life, but I've never had a son before. So I'm going to skip a race and be there for when my wife delivers our son, right? But coming back to the fight that's going to be is if Formula One is going to be able to keep Bernie outside of the paddock. Okay. Because Bernie has already publicly stated his intentions that he might attend the race in, say, Hungary or someplace else within Europe later on in the season. So the question is, if he goes, will they let him come in? And how will that whole battle pan out in 2020? Right?
Exactly.
But thanks so much for joining me, Soumil, and thank you so much for tuning in, guys. It's building up literally days away from the first race of 2020. Look out for video pretty much every day on the Pits To Podium channel, because Soumil and I will see you at another video very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.